the edge of quitting. You've been doing the work, holding the mindset, keeping the routine, and your reality looks exactly the same as it did 2 months ago. The astrophysicist Carl Sagan famously said, "Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence." You've been looking at your unchanged life and reading it as a verdict that you failed, but you are misreading the data. The silence you are experiencing right now isn't a rejection. It is a measurement of distance. The fact that nothing is happening externally is the exact mechanical proof that the internal shift is already working. In the next few minutes, I'm going to take away your need for blind faith. I'm going to show you the cold hard mechanic of why the external world is always the last thing to move, and give you the invisible markers you can check tonight to prove that your reality is already bending. Take a deep breath and clear your mind. Put your phone face down and listen to this.
Chapter 1. The check. You checked again this morning. Not on purpose. You didn't decide to do it. Your hand found the phone before your eyes had properly opened, and by the time you understood what you were doing, you had already pulled up the thing you always pull up. The inbox, the thread, the screen with a number on it. It was the same. The same as yesterday. The same as the day before that. And you put the phone face down on the mattress, and you lay there in the gray light with your heart going slightly too fast. Running the arithmetic you have been running every morning for weeks. 6 weeks. 9. 4 months, if you count from when you actually started, and not from when you started counting. You know the number. You have never said it out loud. There was a night, maybe 8 days ago, when you were sitting across from someone. A friend, a sister, somebody at a table with a glass in front of them. And the conversation drifted close enough that you could have stepped into it. You had the sentence ready. It started with, "I think I might be," and it ended somewhere around, "wasting my time." You picked up your glass instead. You let the moment close over. Because saying it out loud would have made it real in a way that it isn't yet. And some part of you that you no longer entirely trust is still holding that door shut. So you went home. And you checked again. I am not going to tell you that it's coming. That is what everyone else says. You have stopped believing it, and you were correct to stop. Reassurance is what people hand you when they have nothing structural to give. What I am going to tell you is stranger and colder, and it will hold weight long after reassurance stops holding anything. The thing you have been calling failure has a shape. It has a mechanism. It has markers you can check tonight, before you sleep, without one external circumstance moving in your favor. You have not fallen out of the process. You are standing inside the part of it that has no view. Chapter 2. The Arithmetic. Let me describe your last month to you, and you tell me how much of it I get wrong. You do the thing, whatever the thing is for you. The practice at night, the assumption held before sleep, the deliberate refusal to argue with the evidence. And you do it correctly. That's the part nobody says out loud. You are not sloppy about it. You have been more disciplined about this than you have been about most things in your life. Then you get up in the morning, and the world is exactly where you left it. The same walls, the same figure in the doorway of the same room, the same message not arrived, the same account not moved, the same person not calling. The gray architecture stands where it stood, indifferent, load-bearing, humming its fluorescent hum, and it does not so much as acknowledge that anything occurred. And here is the specific texture of it. Not despair. You would almost prefer despair, because despair at least has weather. What you actually have is flatness. The long gray nothing of a life that continues to behave normally, while you privately conduct an operation that nobody around you can see. So you start checking, and the checking becomes its own architecture. You check in the morning before your eyes open. You check in the queue at the shop. You check in the 20 seconds between one task and the next. And you do not experience this as checking. You experience it as a reflex, the way your tongue finds a chipped tooth. Then, somewhere around week 3, the second phase begins. You go back and reread the instructions. Not because you forgot them, you know them. You reread them because you have begun to suspect that you did it wrong, and that the error is small and technical and locatable, and that if you can just find it, this will all resolve. Maybe it was the wrong feeling. Maybe you weren't specific enough. Maybe you were too specific. Maybe you should have felt more certainty, or less wanting, or whatever the word was in the passage you have now read 11 times. That search is the beginning of the collapse, and I will come back to it, because it is the single most efficient way to end the process you are in. But not yet. And underneath the rereading is the third thing, the one you have not admitted in any words at all. You have started to suspect it works for other people, not consciously. You would deny it if asked. But there is a small operation running in the back of your mind now that sorts the world into 2 categories. And the first category is the people for whom life simply arranges itself. And the second category is you. And every day the evidence for that sorting gets one day thicker. Because nothing happened again today. And nothing happening is the only data you have been permitting yourself to collect. You are tired. That is the honest bottom of it. Not dramatic. Not broken. Tired in the specific way of someone who has been carrying something correctly for a long time, with no confirmation that carrying it does anything. And the exhaustion is doing something you cannot see from inside it. It is making you willing to accept a verdict. Chapter 3. The verdict you already passed. So let me say it for you, in your own voice, the way it actually sounds at 2 in the morning. It didn't take. I did the work and it didn't take. I held the state. I did it every night. I stopped complaining about it out loud. I was careful and consistent and quiet about it. And the world did not move. Which means either the whole thing is a story that people tell each other, or it is real and it simply does not work on me. And I don't know which of those is worse. Maybe I'm not the kind of person this happens to. Maybe there's something in me, some weight, some old thing that doesn't come out. Maybe other people have a clean instrument and mine is bent. And the worst part is that I can't even tell anyone. Because if I say it out loud, they'll either pity me or they'll tell me to keep believing, and I don't think I can survive one more person telling me to keep believing. That is the verdict. You passed it privately sometime in the last few weeks, in a room with the lights off. There was no ceremony. Nobody read it aloud. You simply stopped expecting, and you called the stopping realism, and you felt a small, awful relief when you did it. Because at least now you knew where you stood. I want you to notice something about that verdict before I touch it. It was passed on a single piece of evidence. 1. The absence of visible movement in your external circumstances over a period of weeks. That is the entire body of evidence. That is the whole case. And on that evidence, you convicted yourself, and you have been serving the sentence ever since. In a small gray room you built out of one observation. Now, I'm going to take that observation from you. Not soften it. Not reframe it into something gentler. Take it and show you what it actually is. And hand it back to you as the exact opposite of what you thought you were holding. Chapter 4. The Delayed Echo. An echo is not a second sound. There is no new event. Nothing was created. The echo is the same sound you already made, arriving late because it had to go somewhere and come back. And there is a threshold underneath this, which is a measurable physical fact and not a metaphor. Your ear needs roughly 1/10 of a second of separation to register a return as a separate thing. Sound moves about 340 meters every second, so in 1/10 of a second it covers about 34 meters. Out and back. Which means the surface has to be somewhere around 17 meters away before you hear an echo at all. Closer than that, and you do not hear silence, and you do not hear an echo. You hear one sound. So understand what the gap actually is. The gap is not the absence of the sound. The gap is the distance the sound had to cross. That is the delayed echo. And it is the mechanism you have been standing inside for 6 weeks, while calling it nothing. You made the sound. You made it the night the thing in you actually changed. And you probably could not identify which night it was because it did not announce itself. And since that night you have been standing in the interval, listening, hearing no return, and concluding that no sound was ever made. But the interval is not evidence against the sound. The interval is the measurement of the distance. A longer silence does not mean nothing was said. In every physical system that behaves this way, a longer silence means the surface is further out. The delay is proportional to the distance. The delay is information about the size of what is coming back. You have been reading your silence as a verdict. It was a measurement. There is a mark people leave when they cross this line. 2 words. The oldest name there is. The one given out of the fire when the man asked what to call it, and got back nothing but a statement of being. I am. Nothing after it. No sentence, no explanation, no argument. You put it down where it can be read, and in doing that you are signing your name to the record of the night. You stopped waiting for reality to grant you permission to be what you already are. That is not a request. That is a signature. The operator signs. The one still waiting keeps quiet. Now I am going to give you something to hold, because everything I have said so far is still just architecture, and architecture will not get you through tonight. Marker 1. Go back through yesterday and look for something that is missing. Not something that went wrong, something absent. An action you used to perform without ever deciding to perform it, which did not happen, and which you did not notice failing to happen until this exact moment. The reach that did not happen. The text you did not draft in your head on the walk home. The name you did not search. The scenario you did not rehearse in the shower. The old grievance that used to run automatically on the drive and simply did not load this week. You are not looking for a feeling. Feelings lie and you already know they lie. You are looking for a missing behavior, a reflex that used to fire, and a silence where it fired. Find one. Just one. Tonight, before you sleep. Because a reflex does not stop firing on request. It stops firing when the state that produced it is no longer the state you are in. And if the state changed, then the sound was made. And if the sound was made, then everything you have called nothing for the last 6 weeks has been traveling. Chapter 5. What moves first? I am going to take you out of metaphysics for the next few minutes. Not because it fails. Because you have already heard it, and hearing it has stopped doing anything to you. And what you need tonight is not another beautiful sentence about the unseen. What you need is evidence that the structure I just described operates in systems that do not care at all whether you believe in them. So, a man starts lifting weights. He is 6 weeks in. He has not missed a session. Every night he stands in front of the mirror and performs the same small, humiliating audit, turning slightly, looking for the change, and every night the mirror returns the same body it returned in week 1. By any measure available to his eyes, nothing is happening. By every measure available to a laboratory, he has changed substantially. In 1979, 2 researchers named Mauritani and De Vries published a study in the American Journal of Physical Medicine on the time course of strength gain. What they found has held up for 45 years. During roughly the first 4 weeks of training, almost the entire measurable increase in strength comes from the nervous system. Recruitment, firing rate, coordination between motor units. Muscle size becomes the dominant factor only somewhere after the 3rd to 5th week. And later work by Steron and colleagues found that detectable fiber growth generally does not show up until around week 6. Read that carefully, because it is not encouragement. He is stronger in week 2. Measurably, repeatably stronger. The strength is real, and it is present, and it is doing work. The mirror simply has no access to it, because the mirror reports on one variable, and the change is occurring in another. The mirror is the last instrument to report. Every man who quits at week 5 quits while holding a body that has already changed, on the authority of the one measuring device in the room that cannot detect it. That is the first system. Here is a colder one. A person begins taking an antidepressant for depression. Within hours of the first dose, serotonin levels in the synaptic space rise. That is not a gradual thing. The drug does what it was engineered to do almost immediately on day 1, before dinner. The mood does not lift for 2 to 4 weeks. And the reason is one of the most beautiful pieces of mechanism in pharmacology. The brain has receptors sitting on the presynaptic neuron, whose job is to sense how much serotonin is out there and throttle release accordingly. When the drug floods the space, those receptors read the flood and clamp down. They suppress output. The system fights the change, precisely because the change is happening. Only after weeks of sustained pressure do those receptors desensitize and stop resisting. Then the effect appears. So consider the person in week 2 who says, "This isn't working." They are describing the mechanism with total accuracy. Nothing they can feel has changed. And the conclusion they draw from that accurate description is wrong in the most costly way available to them. Because week 2 is not the absence of the effect. Week 2 is the sound of the old system resisting a change that has already been introduced. The people who stop in week 2 stop while holding the thing that works. One more, and this one is the closest to your situation. When an earthquake occurs, 2 waves leave the source. The primary wave moves faster. The secondary wave moves slower. At any station on the surface, the fast one arrives. And then there is a gap. And then the slow one arrives. A seismologist does not sit through that gap waiting for information. The gap is the information. The length of that interval is proportional to the distance traveled. A short gap means the source was close. A long gap means the source was far. Nobody experiences the interval between the 2 arrivals as evidence that no earthquake occurred, because the interval is the one measurement in the entire system that tells you the scale of what is on its way. You have been sitting in your interval, treating it as proof of absence. It is your distance measurement. It is the only one you have been given, and you have been reading it upside down for 6 weeks. Now let me take some things away from you. Half of what circulates in this territory is decoration, and you have probably been leaning on some of it without knowing. And decoration collapses under weight at exactly the moment you need something to hold. You have heard that it takes 21 days. That number comes from a plastic surgeon named Maxwell Maltz, writing in 1960. He noticed that patients took around 3 weeks to stop seeing a stranger in the mirror after facial surgery, and that amputees took roughly 3 weeks to stop feeling a limb that was gone. He wrote that it required a minimum of about 21 days for an old mental image to dissolve. A minimum. About. Concerning adjustment to a changed body, and never once concerning the formation of a habit. The actual research came half a century later. Lally and colleagues at University College London, published in 2010, tracked 96 people forming a new daily behavior. The median time to automaticity was 66 days. The range ran from 18 days to 254. 254 days. Somebody in that study was still not automatic on day 200. They were not defective. They were not doing it wrong. They were inside the distribution, in the long part of it, where almost nobody is told they are allowed to be. You have been holding yourself to a number invented by a surgeon in 1960 about people learning to recognize their own faces. While I am here, 3 more. The bamboo that supposedly grows underground for 5 years and then rises 80 feet in 6 weeks is folklore. Root systems do establish before visible growth, which is true and useful. But the specific story is a motivational invention, and a knowledgeable person will take it off you. Most of the stars you see are not dead. Nearly all naked-eye stars sit within a few thousand light years, and roughly one of them dies every 10,000 years. So the odds that even one currently visible star is already gone are under 1%. The light is genuinely old. The death was added for effect. And the part of your brain that filters what you notice, the reticular formation, regulates arousal and attention. It is why your own name cuts through a loud room. It does not reach into the world and arrange events. Neither does quantum measurement, which involves physical interaction and not human attention. I am removing these because you do not need them. Every real system I have described tonight shares one property. The output is the last thing to move. And in every one of them, something else moves first. Something specific. Something measurable by an instrument other than the mirror. You have an instrument. You have had it the entire time. In the next stretch, I am going to hand you what to point it at. Chapter 6, The Markers. Here is the problem with everything you have been taught to look for. You have been taught to look for arrivals, the message, the offer, the reversal, the moment the phone lights up with the thing. And arrivals are the last event in a long chain, which means you have been checking the end of the process for confirmation that the beginning of it occurred. So we are going to check somewhere else. 5 markers. Each of them locatable tonight, before you sleep, without one external circumstance moving in your favor. None of them are feelings, because your feelings are exhausted and unreliable, and you already know that. Every one of them is a behavior that stopped. That distinction matters more than anything else in this video. A feeling can be manufactured by wanting it. A reflex cannot. A reflex only stops firing when the state that generated it is no longer the state you occupy. You already have marker 1, the reach that did not happen. Here are the rest. Marker 2, the thing that stopped producing a reaction. There is a stimulus in your life that used to cost you something. A name appearing where you did not expect it. A photograph of somebody doing the thing you have been waiting to do. A particular person's success arriving in your feed at the exact wrong hour. An update from a life adjacent to the one you wanted, running ahead of yours. It used to land like a small physical event. There was a drop somewhere behind the sternum, and then a shift in the temperature of the evening, and then 20 minutes of internal argument that you did not choose to hold and could not stop holding. Go and find that stimulus and check what it did last time. Not what it does when you deliberately think about it now, because deliberately thinking about it will summon the old response out of memory. I mean the last time it actually happened, unplanned, when you were not braced. There is a real possibility that it landed flat, that you saw it, registered it, and moved on. That the 20 minutes never started. That you noticed nothing at the time because the absence of a wound does not announce itself. And you only have access to this now because I have asked you to go back and look. That is not maturity. You did not become a better person in 6 weeks. That is a state change showing up as a missing reaction. The stimulus was never the cause of the pain. The state you were in was the cause. Same input, different instrument, no sound. Marker 3, what you no longer reach for. Every person carries a comfort mechanism that runs in the specific 15 minutes when the day stops holding them up. For you, it might be the scroll that begins at 11 and ends at 1. It might be the drink poured slightly earlier than the drink before it. The food eaten standing at the counter with the lights off. The reassurance text sent to somebody who does not know they are being used as a stabilizer. The video you have already watched, played again, because the room got too quiet. You know which one is yours? It took you about 4 seconds. Now check whether you have been doing it. And here is the part that separates a real marker from a self-improvement fantasy. I am not asking whether you resisted it. Resistance is the old state wearing a disciplined coat. Resistance is you, still needing it, refusing it, exhausted by the refusal, counting the days. I am asking whether you forgot. Whether there was an evening in the last 2 weeks where 11 o'clock arrived and the mechanism simply did not deploy, and you went to bed, and it was unremarkable, and you did not award yourself anything for it because nothing happened worth awarding. A person who resists a comfort mechanism is still the person who needs it. A person who forgets it has stopped being the person who needed it, and the forgetting happened first and quietly and without permission. Marker 4, the window where the worry did not run. There is a specific anxiety that has occupied scheduled real estate in your day. It has a time of day. Most people's is the first 90 seconds after waking, or the commute, or the shower, or the moment the front door closes behind them and the performance can stop. It runs on rails. It uses the same words every time. You could recite it? Somewhere in the last 3 weeks, there was a window when it did not run. An afternoon, a morning, possibly only 2 hours. A stretch of time that passed in which the thing that has been eating you did not get loaded, and you were simply occupied with the ordinary business of being a person in a room. You almost certainly noticed it afterwards, and here is how you will identify it. The noticing came with a flash of something unpleasant, a small jolt, close to guilt, as though you had abandoned a post you were supposed to be manning. That jolt is the marker, not the piece. The guilt about the piece. Because guilt of that specific shape only appears when a duty is lapsed. And you had, somewhere along the way, taken on the worry as a duty. You believed that holding it was doing something. That the vigilance was load-bearing. That if you stopped watching, the outcome would drift. The hours you forgot to suffer are not lost hours. They are the first territory the new state took. And it took it while you were not supervising, which is the only way it was ever going to be taken. Marker 5. The story got shorter. This one is the most reliable, and almost nobody knows to check it. Somebody asked you how it was going. 6 weeks ago, that question opened a door, and a great deal came through it. The full account, the background, the sequence, the unfairness, the specific detail about the specific person, the part where you say, and the thing is, and then continue for another 90 seconds. You had a version of it that ran long, and you were good at it, and telling it produced a particular kind of relief. Check what you said the last time. There is a real chance you said a short thing, 3 sentences, possibly 1. And then you changed the subject, or asked them something about themselves, and moved on. And here is the diagnostic detail, the one that tells you what this actually was. You did not shorten it to protect yourself. You were not being guarded. You shortened it because somewhere in the middle of the long version stopped feeling accurate in your mouth. The words were still true as facts. They had simply stopped describing you. That is what a state change sounds like from the inside. Not revelation, not a surge. A mild, almost embarrassing loss of interest in a story you have been telling for a year, arriving in the middle of a sentence, in a kitchen, in front of somebody who did not notice anything at all. You cannot narrate a life you are no longer living. The narration goes first. The circumstances follow it at a distance, on their own schedule. Some of you just found one. You went looking for a story you no longer tell, or an hour you forgot to spend suffering, and you found it. And something in your chest did the thing it does when a fact arrives that you cannot argue with. That moment has a name attached to it. 2 words and no others. I am. Put it down. Leave it exactly there, with nothing else beside it. No sentence explaining what you found, no account of your circumstances, no request. The operator does not explain himself to the record. He signs it, and the signature is the oldest name there is. Marker 6. Other people moved before your circumstances did. This is the last one, and it is the strangest, and I want you to hold it carefully because it is easy to hear wrongly. Go through the last 2 weeks and look for a small, unexplained change in how somebody treated you. Someone deferred to you in a conversation where they would previously have talked over you. Someone came to you with something, and you cannot quite work out why they chose you. A person who has been cool with you for months was warm for no available reason. Somebody's voice did something different on the phone. You were approached, asked, included, waited for. Nothing came of it. That is why you dismissed it at the time. Understand what this is and what it is not. Nothing is being sent to you. No arrangement is being made on your behalf by an intelligence outside the room. That is decoration, and I took decoration off you an hour ago. What happens is simpler and harder to dismiss. People are extraordinarily accurate readers of state. They read posture, latency, the length of a pause, whether your eyes leave first, whether you are auditioning or occupying. They read it below the level of their own awareness, and they adjust their behavior to match, and they cannot tell you why they adjusted it. Your circumstances have not changed. Your state has. And the human beings around you are the fastest instrument in the entire system, because they are the only part of your environment that measures you continuously and responds within seconds. The bank does not notice. The room notices immediately, which means the people around you have already begun to move, in small ways, in the direction of a life that has not arrived yet. That is the first plank. And there is a name for what gets built out of planks like that, given to it 70 years ago by a man who understood this territory better than anyone before or since. I will take you there shortly. 6 markers. Go and find 2 of them tonight. Not all 6. 2. Because a person who goes looking for 6 pieces of evidence is auditing, and auditing is checking with better manners. And checking is the thing that ends this, which brings us to the part of the video that will cost you something to hear. Everything I have described is fragile in exactly one direction. There is a short list of behaviors that reliably collapse this process, and you are almost certainly performing at least one of them. And you are performing it because it feels like diligence. Chapter 7. What breaks it? Everything I have shown you is durable in every direction, but one. It does not break under pressure. It does not break under bad circumstances, or under other people's doubt, or under a run of days where the evidence gets worse. It breaks under a very specific set of behaviors, and every one of them feels, at the moment of performance, like something responsible. That is why they work. Nobody abandons this process by deciding to abandon it. They abandon it by doing 4 things that look like diligence. The first is the check. I want to describe what actually occurs in the 4 seconds when you pick up the phone to look, because you have never had it described to you and you have performed it several thousand times. You look because you want confirmation. In order to want confirmation, you must first occupy a position of not having it. And in order to occupy that position, you must, for the length of that action, be the person for whom the thing has not happened. The checking is not neutral observation. The checking is a re-entry. You are not looking at your life from the new state. You are stepping back into the old one in order to look, because only the old one is interested in looking. And then you are standing there inside it at 7 in the morning in the dark, wearing the exact assumption you spent 3 weeks dismantling. And then you put the phone down and get on with your day, and you believe that nothing occurred. Something occurred. You reinstated it, briefly, unceremoniously, before you were properly awake. And you will do it again tomorrow. And the reinstatement takes about 4 seconds and undoes an evening's work. Here's the hard part. I am not going to tell you to stop checking, because you cannot stop a reflex by deciding to. You have tried. It does not work. And failing at it will hand you one more piece of evidence that you are defective. What I am telling you is to know what it is while you do it, not to stop the reach, to lose the belief that the reach is neutral, to understand, at the moment your thumb hits the glass, that you are not gathering information. You are standing in a room you moved out of. That knowledge is corrosive to the behavior in a way that willpower is not. Nothing survives being seen clearly for very long. The second is the return to the instructions. You went back and read it again. The book, the passage, the lecture, the video. Not once. Repeatedly over weeks, and always with the same search running underneath, which is that you are looking for a technical error. Maybe the feeling was wrong. Maybe the specificity was wrong. Maybe you were supposed to hold it longer or shorter or in a different position or with a different quality of certainty. Somewhere in there is a small mechanical mistake, and if you can locate it, everything resolves. That search has a premise buried in it, and the premise is the entire problem. The premise is that it did not work. You cannot search for the error without having first concluded that there is one. Every hour you spend rereading is an hour spent occupying the assumption that this has failed, performed with the posture of a diligent student. It is the most respectable form of disbelief available, and it is the one that has cost most of the people listening the most time. There is a difference between learning something and auditing yourself for defects. Learning happens before. Auditing happens after. And it happens in the old state. And it is checking with a better vocabulary. You do not need to read it again. You did it correctly. That was never the variable. The third is the account you give to other people. This one is the most costly and the least suspected, because it arrives wearing the clothing of honesty. Somebody asks how you are, and you tell them the truth. that it has been a while, that you are not sure, that you have been doing everything and nothing has moved. You are not complaining. You are being accurate, and you are entitled to be accurate. And there is even relief in it. Understand what you just did. You took a state that was dissolving and you gave it a witness. You restated it in language in front of another consciousness, and they received it and believed it. And now it exists in a second place. It has been documented. It has a witness who will carry it and who will next time ask you about it in that voice and hand it back to you. And you built that yourself out of one honest answer at a kitchen table. I am not telling you to lie to people who love you. That would be a hollow instruction and you would ignore it correctly. I am telling you that there is a difference between honesty and testimony. Honesty is, I have found this period difficult. Testimony is the full account delivered at length, with the evidence marshaled and the conclusion attached, to somebody who has no ability to do anything with it except believe you. The first costs nothing. The second is a signature on the wrong document. Notice which one you have been giving. The fourth is the one nobody admits. You went back to the old assumption because it was warm, not because you were convinced, because it was familiar and it was 3 a.m. And being the person things do not work out for is an identity you have been wearing long enough that it fits, and the new one still feels like standing in a room in somebody else's clothes. The old state does not require anything of you. It has no gap in it. There is no interval to survive, no waiting, no discipline, no risk. It explains everything that has ever happened to you, and it never asks you to be exposed. The old man does not argue. He does not need to. He waits, and he keeps the room warm, and he knows precisely how tired you are and exactly what hour to expect you. And you went back. Some night in the last month, you went back and put it on and slept in it, and in the morning you told yourself that you were being realistic. That is not realism. That is comfort with a serious face on. What I have given you tonight is the shape of the interval and how to stand in it. What I have not given you is the full architecture underneath it. This is a transmission, and a transmission has a length, and there is a great deal that sits below what a recording can carry. The operating structure, the failure modes at depth, the work that does not resolve the interval by shortening it, but by making it a place you can occupy indefinitely without it costing you anything. That work exists in its complete form, mindheavenaudio.cloud. It is there for the ones who reach the end of a recording and understand that they have reached the end of the recording and not the end of the material. Now let me say the thing I have been holding since the beginning of this chapter. Every one of those 4 behaviors is the behavior of somebody who cares whether this works. The person who does not check is the person who never wanted it. The person who does not reread never took it seriously. The person who never narrates the lack has nobody they trust enough to say it to. The person who never goes back to the old room has never been tired. You have not been undisciplined. You have been performing the exact behaviors that wanting produces, and each of them has been quietly reinstating the thing you were trying to leave, and nobody told you, because everyone in this territory is busy promising arrival, and none of them are describing the crossing. You are being told now. And there is a name for what forms in a person who stops checking and simply continues. It was given 70 years ago by a man born in Barbados who understood the interval better than anyone before or since, and who called it something that has no drama in it at all. Chapter 8, The Bridge of Incidents. In 1922, a 17-year-old boy left Barbados on a ship bound for New York to become a dancer. He He was born in St. Michael Parish on the 19th of February, 1905, the fourth of 10 children of a merchant family. He worked as a dancer and an actor. He appeared on Broadway. He toured Europe with a company. He was, for the first stretch of his life, a performer and nothing else. And there is no early sign in any of it of the man he became. By the end of his life, he had written 11 books and delivered several thousand lectures. And he died in West Hollywood on the 1st of October, 1972. He is the reason any of this reached you, through whatever chain of people it traveled to arrive in your ears tonight. And he had a term for the thing you have been standing inside for 6 weeks. It was not delayed echo. That phrase is mine. I built it for this recording because it describes the physics accurately, and because you needed something you could hold. And I am telling you it is mine, so that you never repeat it back to somebody as though it came from him. His term was better and quieter, and it has almost no drama in it at all. He called it the Bridge of Incidents. In a lecture given in 1968, speaking about what happens after you occupy the end, he said that a bridge of incidents will appear in your world. In another, given in 1970, he described moving across a bridge of incidents leading from where the state was assumed to its fulfillment. Read what that image actually contains, because it is doing something precise. There is no leap in it. Nothing arrives. Nothing is delivered. Nothing appears in the sky. There is a bridge, which is a structure, and structures have length. And a bridge is crossed one section at a time by a person walking, in ordinary time, at ordinary speed. Which means the incidents are not the delay before the crossing. The incidents are the crossing. And here is why that matters more than anything else in this chapter. A bridge is built out of materials that individually look like nothing. Ordinary events. A conversation that went slightly differently than it would have. A plan that fell through and freed a week you did not know you needed. Somebody who thought of you and could not say why. A door that closed and made a corridor. You have been walking across those for weeks and reading each one as unrelated weather. Go back to marker 6, the people around you who began behaving differently before your circumstances changed. That was not a coincidence, and it was not an intervention. That was the first plank. You stood on it. You did not notice you were standing on anything, because a plank underfoot is indistinguishable from ground. Now I am going to do something that the rest of this territory will not do, and I am going to do it because I took the decorations off you an hour ago, and I am not putting one back now. There are 2 things about this lineage that cannot be verified, and you should hear them from me, rather than from somebody in a comment section who is trying to take the whole structure down. The first, Neville said he had a teacher. He named him as Abdullah, described him as an Ethiopian-born black Jew, and said in a 1953 lecture that if he had to name a man he considered his teacher, he would name him. There is no birth record, no death record, no surname, no photograph, no civil documentation of any kind. The man exists in Neville's own account and almost nowhere else. Historians have speculated about who he might have been, and the speculation does not hold together cleanly. So I will say the true thing, which is that Neville said it, and that saying it is where the evidence stops. The second, the 2 words. In the account, a man stands in front of a burning bush and asks what name to give. And what comes back in the Hebrew is Ehya Asher Ehya. Translators have never agreed on what that means. The King James renders it, I am that I am. Other traditions render it, I will be what I will be. The verb sits in a form that biblical Hebrew does not resolve into English tense cleanly. which is why one major Jewish translation in 1985 declined to translate the 4 words at all and simply left them standing. Neville read it as present tense. Pure being, permanent awareness, the I am that you are. That is one reading, and I find it the most useful one. And I want you to know that it is a reading and not a settled fact. But sit with what the ambiguity actually is. The oldest name in the tradition is a word that scholars cannot pin to a tense. It hangs between I am and I will be. It refuses to distinguish the state from its fulfillment. If you had to invent a name for a man standing in a gap between an assumption and its appearance, you could not build a better one than a word that will not separate the two. You are not waiting outside the name. You are standing inside it. One last piece of evidence, and it is the one that should make you angry. In 1986, 4 researchers published a study in American Psychologist on the relationship between the amount of therapy a person receives and the improvement they experience. The finding was clean. Roughly half of patients showed measurable improvement somewhere between 8 and 13 sessions. Reaching 3/4 took around 26. The average person attends fewer than 5. Read that once more. The dose that produces change is documented. It has been documented for 40 years. And the typical person walks out of the building before reaching it, having concluded on the evidence available to them that it does not work. They were not wrong about their evidence. They were wrong about where they were standing. And there is research on why this happens with such reliability. 2 psychologists, Polivy and Herman, spent years studying why people abandon attempts to change themselves. And the finding they kept returning to was that abandonment is driven by unrealistic expectations about the speed of change. Not the difficulty, not the cost, the speed. Nobody quits because it was hard. They quit because it was slow, and nobody had told them the length of the bridge. I am telling you the length. There is no number I can give you, because the range in every honest study is enormous, and anyone quoting you a specific figure is selling something. What I can tell you is that the interval is standard. It is documented across every domain where change has been measured properly, and the people who cross it are not distinguished by talent or worthiness or a cleaner instrument. They are distinguished by having still been on the bridge when it ended. Chapter 9. Standing in the interval. So, tomorrow morning, you will wake up and the room will be the same room. The light will come in at the same angle. The gray architecture will be standing exactly where it was standing when this recording began, indifferent, humming, entirely unimpressed by the last 80 minutes. And your hand will go toward the phone. I am not going to tell you to stop it. I told you already that you cannot stop a reflex by deciding to, and I am not going to end this by handing you an instruction you will fail at before breakfast. Here is what I want instead. When your hand moves, know what it is. That is all. Not a fight, not a discipline, just the knowledge, arriving at the same time as the movement, that you are about to step back into a room you no longer live in, and that whatever is on that screen has no authority over what has already happened. Check if you check. It costs you 4 seconds, and you will have the rest of the day. What matters is that you no longer believe the screen is telling you the truth about your position. The screen reports on circumstances. Circumstances are the last instrument to move. You have known this for 40 minutes now, and you are not going to be able to unknow it. Then you will go and have your day. And I want to be exact about what I am asking of you inside it, because this is the only instruction in the entire recording. I am not asking you to believe harder. Belief is not a muscle, and straining it produces nothing but fatigue, and you are already carrying more fatigue than this deserves. I am asking you to continue, to go through tomorrow as the person for whom it is already handled, not performing certainty, not manufacturing a feeling you do not have, simply declining to reorganize your behavior around evidence that has not arrived yet. That is what the operator does. Not faith, not force, not a technique performed at a specific hour with a specific quality of attention. Continuation. The refusal to let an interval reorganize a decision that was already made. And you will not always manage it. There will be a night this week where you go back to the old room because it is warm and it is 3 a.m. and you are tired. You will sleep in it. That is not a collapse, and it does not undo anything, any more than one missed day undid the habits in that study of 96 people. You come back the next morning. That is the whole of it. Nobody crosses a bridge without stopping on it. I want to return to something from the beginning. 8 days ago, or thereabouts, you sat across from somebody at a table with a glass in front of you, and you had a sentence ready, and it started with, "I think I might be," and ended somewhere around, "wasting my time." And you did not say it. You have been carrying that as cowardice, as the moment you should have been honest and were not. Something in you would not put its name to that document. You did not have language for it at the time, and it felt like fear. And you have been holding it against yourself for over a week. It was not fear. It was the part of you that had already changed, refusing to give testimony on behalf of a state it had left. You have been more consistent than you know. You simply had no instrument that could read it. 2 words. You know them by now? I am. The work that carries this further is at mindheavenaudio.cloud, in the form it was meant to take, for the ones who find that a recording ends before the material does. Here is where I leave you. You came into this recording holding one piece of evidence, and the evidence was that nothing has happened. You were going to convict yourself on it. You may have already passed the sentence and simply not carried it out yet. That evidence is still true. Nothing visible has happened. I have not moved a single circumstance in your life in the last 80 minutes, and I was never going to. What has changed is what the silence means. You made the sound. You made it on some night you cannot identify, and it has been traveling ever since. And the reason you have heard nothing back is that the surface it is crossing to is further out than a few weeks of listening can reach. The gap is not the absence of the sound. The gap is the distance the sound had to cross. Nothing is happening. That is exactly what it looks like when it is working. Go and find 2 of the markers tonight. Then sleep and get up and continue, and let the silence be what it has been the entire time, which is a measurement of how far.
You have reached the end of this recording, but you have not reached the end of the crossing. Tomorrow morning, the world will likely look exactly the same. The grey architecture will still be standing, the reflex to check will still be there, but you are no longer misreading the silence. You now know that the gap is not an absence of movement, it is the distance the sound has to cross. If you are the kind of person who understands that this recording ends before the material does, the complete operating structure is waiting for you. The deep work, the architecture that makes the interval a place you can occupy indefinitely without it costing you anything, exists in its complete form. At mindhavenaudio.cloud, you will find a link in the description below. If this transmission gave you the exact instrument you needed tonight, subscribe to the channel so you do not lose this space. And if you found your marker today, go to the comments and sign the record with 2 words, I am. And if you went back through your day and found even one of the markers we talked about, go to the comments right now and sign the record. Leave the 2 words and nothing else. I am. Now, put the phone down, get some sleep, and tomorrow continue.